In this series, we are going to explore a wonderful book called Atomic Habits. This book is written by James Clear, a writer and speaker who has spent years studying how habits work and how small changes can create big results. James Clear is not just a researcher. He is someone who understands real life. He has faced challenges himself and learned how to grow step by step. That is why his advice feels friendly, practical, and easy to follow. So what is Atomic Habits about? The book teaches us that success does not come from huge changes that happen all at once. Instead, success is built from tiny habits, small actions that you repeat every day. These habits might seem too small to matter at first, but over time, they can completely change your life. Just like a small seed can grow into a tall tree, a tiny habit can grow into a big achievement. Why do small habits make such a big difference? Imagine if you improved just 1% every single day. It doesn't sound like much, right? But over time, these little improvements add up. They multiply. And before you know it, you are much better than when you started. Small habits are powerful because they are easy to start and they fit naturally into your life. You do not need to wait for the perfect time. You can begin right now. In this series, I will share the main ideas from Atomic Habits in simple, easy English. You will learn how to build good habits, how to break bad ones, and how to make changes that last. Each episode will focus on one big idea from the book, explained in a friendly and clear way. Not only will you learn the lessons from James Clear, but you will also improve your English by listening, reading, and understanding new words in context. So, let's begin this journey together. Remember, you do not need to change everything at once. You just need to take one small step today, and then another small step tomorrow. Over time, those steps will lead you to the life you dream of. Chapter 1. The Power of Small Changes. Atomic habits are tiny actions that seem almost too small to matter. They are like the atoms in the physical world, small on their own. But when they come together, they can build something huge and powerful. In the same way, an atomic habit is a little routine or choice that you repeat often. It might be brushing your teeth, reading one page of a book, taking the stairs instead of the elevator, or writing one sentence in a journal. Each action seems so small that you might think it makes no difference. But over time, these actions shape who you are and what you can achieve. They are the building blocks of success, health, happiness, and personal growth. The idea of a 1% improvement is simple but powerful. Imagine you improve yourself by just 1% every day. 1% is almost nothing. You might not even notice the change at first, but over a year, those small improvements compound. They build on each other. Just like money in a bank grows with interest, your skills, habits, and results grow with each tiny improvement. If you keep getting just a little bit better every day, the progress becomes huge. On the other hand, if you get 1% worse every day, by skipping good habits or repeating bad ones, the decline also grows. This shows us that small daily choices are not small at all. They decide the direction of our life. Habits compound over time in the same way that interest compounds in a savings account. In the beginning, you may not see much change. This is because results take time to appear. Just like a seed needs time before it grows above the soil, your small habits need time before they produce visible results. But if you keep repeating them, the growth becomes faster and stronger. After weeks or months, you will look back and see that you have come a long way. This is the power of compounding. Small actions repeated consistently turn into big outcomes. It works with positive habits, and unfortunately, it also works with negative habits. Eating a little too much sugar every day might not harm you in a week, but over years, it can cause health problems. The same rule works for learning, fitness, relationships, and even finances. Small steps, repeated over time, lead to big changes, good or bad. There are many real-life examples of how small changes create big results. Think about an athlete who starts by running just 5 minutes a day. At first, it does not seem like much, but each week they run a little longer. After a few months, they can run for an hour without stopping. Their fitness improves, their energy grows, and their confidence increases. All of this started with a simple, small habit, running for 5 minutes. Another example is learning a new language. If you study just 5 new words a day, it might feel slow at first. But in a year, you will know more than 1,800 words. That is enough to have basic conversations and understand much of what you read. A small daily step becomes a big achievement. The same principle works in professional life. A writer who writes only 300 words a day will finish a novel in a year. A student who reads just 10 pages a day will finish more than 3,600 pages in a year, which is about 12 books. A person who saves a small amount of money every week will build a savings account that can be used for emergencies or opportunities. None of these results happen overnight, but they are the result of small, repeated actions that are easy to do and easy not to do. The difference is whether you choose to do them consistently. One of the reasons small changes are so powerful is that they are easier to maintain than big changes. If you try to change everything in your life at once, it can feel overwhelming. You might have the motivation for a few days, but when life gets busy or you feel tired, you stop. On the other hand, a small change is easy to keep doing even on hard days. If your habit takes only 2 minutes, it is almost impossible to skip. Over time, this builds consistency, and consistency is what leads to results. The power is not in the size of each action, but in the fact that you keep doing it over and over again. Another important point is that small habits can change the way you see yourself. Every time you repeat a habit, you are proving something to yourself. If you read every day, you start to see yourself as a reader. If you exercise every day, you begin to believe you are a healthy person. If you practice speaking English every day, you start to feel like a confident English speaker. These small proofs change your identity, and when your identity changes, your behavior naturally follows. You no longer have to force yourself to do the habit. It becomes part of who you are. Some people get discouraged when they start a habit and do not see results quickly. They think, "This is not working," and they stop. But habits are like ice melting. Imagine you have a block of ice in a cold room. The temperature slowly rises from -5 degrees Celsius to -4 degrees Celsius to -3 degrees Celsius to -2 degrees Celsius, and so on. At first, nothing happens. The ice still looks solid, but when the temperature reaches 0 degrees Celsius, the ice starts to melt. The change was happening all along, but you could not see it until a certain point. Habits work the same way. The results are hidden for a while, but they are building beneath the surface. The key is to keep going until you reach your melting point. In the end, the power of small changes is not just about achieving a goal. It is about creating a lifestyle where good habits happen naturally and bad habits fade away. It is about making progress feel easy and natural so you can keep improving without burning out. It is about using the power of time to your advantage, letting small, positive actions grow into something big and meaningful. Every great change in life starts with a single small step. The challenge is to believe that this step matters, even when it feels too small to notice. The truth is, these small steps are the only way real change ever happens. If you want to improve your health, your work, your relationships, or your skills, start small. Pick one tiny habit that moves you in the right direction. Repeat it every day, even if it feels too easy. Over time, you will see that this is the secret. Big results are just small habits multiplied by time. Chapter 2. Forget goals. Focus on systems. Many people believe that if they just set the right goal, they will succeed. They tell themselves, I want to lose 10 kilos, or I want to speak fluent English, or I want to save $1,000. Setting goals can be exciting because it gives us a picture of where we want to be. But the truth is, goals alone are not enough. Almost everyone has goals. Every athlete in a race wants to win. Every student in school wants to pass. Every person who starts a new year makes some kind of resolution. Goals are common, but what separates the people who succeed from those who fail is not the goal itself. It is the system they follow to reach it. Without a system, even the clearest goal will fade away. A goal is about the result you want. A system is about the process that gets you there. If your goal is to write a book, your system might be writing 300 words every day. If your goal is to run a marathon, your system is the training plan that tells you how much to run each week. The goal is the finish line. The system is the path you walk to reach it. Goals can motivate you for a short time, but systems keep you moving for the long term. When you focus only on the goal, you might feel frustrated if progress is slow. But when you focus on the system, you can find satisfaction in the process itself because you are improving each day, no matter how far the final result still is. Another problem with goals is that they create a cycle of temporary happiness. When you finally reach the goal, you feel great for a moment, but then the feeling fades. You start looking for the next goal, and the cycle begins again. Systems are different. They are not something you finish. They are something you keep doing. They help you build habits that become part of your daily life. This means the progress never stops. Even if you reach one target, the system continues to carry you forward. In other words, goals are about winning once, but systems are about winning again and again. Building a system for success means creating a set of actions you can follow every day, no matter how you feel. It is about designing your environment, your schedule, and your routines so that doing the right thing becomes easy and natural. Instead of waiting for motivation, you build habits that happen automatically. You remove as many obstacles as possible, and you make the good choice the easiest choice. This is why systems are more reliable than goals. They do not depend on you feeling motivated. They depend on you following a plan that works. For example, let's talk about learning English. many people set the goal. I want to be fluent in English. This sounds nice, but it is not specific about how to get there. Without a system, this goal can feel overwhelming. You might study hard for a few days, but then life gets busy and the goal slips away. A system, on the other hand, breaks the big dream into small, repeatable actions. Your English learning system might be: read 1 English article every morning, learn 5 new words before lunch, watch a short English video in the afternoon, and speak with a language partner for 10 minutes in the evening. Each part of the system is small and easy to do, but together they create constant progress. You are not just chasing the idea of fluency. You are living the habits that will make you fluent. When you focus on the system, you measure your success by your actions, not just your final result. If your system says you should learn 5 words today and you do it, that is a success. You do not have to wait for the day you are fluent to feel proud. This makes learning more enjoyable and less stressful. It also means you are less likely to quit because the daily actions feel achievable. The system keeps you moving forward, step by step, until one day you look back and realize how far you have come. There is also another benefit. Systems protect you from the pressure of perfection. If you miss one day, it is not the end of the world. You simply return to the system the next day. With goals, missing a deadline can feel like failure. But with systems, there is no final deadline. There is just the habit of showing up again and again. That is why people with strong systems tend to outlast people who only have big goals. They understand that progress is a journey, not a single moment of victory. In the long run, focusing on systems changes the way you think about improvement. You stop asking, "When will I reach my goal?" and start asking, "How can I make my system better?" This is a more powerful question because even small improvements to your system can lead to big improvements in your results. If you make your English learning system just a little more effective, by finding better materials, improving your environment, or adjusting your schedule, you will learn faster without having to push yourself harder. The system does the heavy lifting for you. Think of it like planting a garden. Your goal might be to grow beautiful flowers, but if you only think about the flowers and never water the soil, nothing will grow. A system is like the daily care you give to the garden, watering, removing weeds, giving sunlight. The flowers are the result, but the system is the work that makes the result possible. If you take care of the system, the flowers will appear naturally. This is why it is so important to shift your focus away from just setting goals and start building systems. Goals can point you in the right direction, but it is the system that gets you there. You do not rise to the level of your goals. You fall to the level of your systems. If your system is strong, you will make progress even on days when you feel tired or unmotivated. If your system is weak, even the best goal will not save you. So, as you think about what you want to achieve, ask yourself, what system will help me get there? Then start small. Make the system simple enough that you can follow it every day without stress. Over time, your system will carry you further than you imagined. You might begin with a dream of speaking English, but by following your system, you will become someone who speaks English every day without effort. That is the magic of focusing on systems. They turn your dreams into daily actions, and your daily actions into lasting success. Chapter 3. The 4 Laws of Behavior Change. Habits are the small choices we make every day, and they shape who we are and what we achieve. But how do we create good habits that last and break the bad ones that hold us back? James Clear explains that all habits follow a simple pattern, and by understanding this pattern, we can change our behavior effectively. He calls this the 4 laws of behavior change. These laws are simple to understand, but when used together, they become incredibly powerful. The first law is to make it obvious. Habits start with a cue, something that triggers your brain to act. If you want to start a new habit, you need to make the cue clear and visible. For example, if you want to drink more water, place a water bottle on your desk where you can see it all day. If you want to read more, leave a book on your pillow so you see it before bed. By making the cue obvious, you remind yourself to act without having to think too hard. Good habits become automatic when the signals for them are easy to notice. The second law is to make it attractive. Our brains are wired to seek pleasure and avoid pain. If a habit feels enjoyable, we are more likely to repeat it. On the other hand, if it feels boring or unpleasant, we avoid it. To make habits attractive, we can pair them with something we enjoy. For example, if you want to exercise, listen to your favorite music or podcast while working out. If you want to practice English, watch a short video in English that interests you instead of forcing yourself to read something boring. When a habit feels good, your brain looks forward to it and it becomes easier to do consistently. The third law is to make it easy. The simpler a habit is, the more likely you are to follow through. Many people fail to build habits because they make them too difficult. If learning English feels overwhelming, you might give up before you start. But if you make it easy, success becomes natural. Break your habit into the smallest possible step. Instead of trying to study English for an hour, start with 5 minutes. Instead of running a full marathon, start by walking for 10 minutes. When habits are easy, you remove the friction that blocks action, and over time, these small steps grow into bigger results. The fourth law is to make it satisfying. Our brains repeat behaviors that feel good and avoid those that feel bad. If a habit is immediately satisfying, you are more likely to continue it. For example, you can track your progress with a checklist or calendar. Each time you mark a completed habit, you feel a small sense of achievement. This reward strengthens the habit loop in your brain. Without satisfaction, even good habits can fade because your brain does not get the feedback it needs to remember to repeat them. Satisfaction is what makes habits stick. These 4 laws do not work alone. They work together to create lasting behavior change. When you make a habit obvious, attractive, easy, and satisfying, it becomes almost automatic. You don't need strong willpower or motivation because the system is built to guide you naturally. Each law supports the others. The cue makes you notice the habit, the attraction makes you want to do it, the simplicity makes it possible, and the satisfaction makes you repeat it. Together, they form a framework that anyone can use to improve their habits and their life. When applied to daily life, these laws can transform small actions into big changes. Imagine you want to exercise regularly. By making your workout clothes visible, you make it obvious. By listening to your favorite music, you make it attractive. By starting with short sessions, you make it easy. By tracking your progress on a calendar, you make it satisfying. If you follow all 4 steps, exercising becomes a natural part of your routine, and over time, your health improves significantly. These laws also help us break bad habits. In reverse, we can make the cue invisible, the habit unattractive, the action difficult, and the outcome unsatisfying. For example, if you want to stop checking your phone before bed, keep it in another room so you don't see it. Remove apps or notifications that tempt you. Make the habit harder by charging it away from your bed, and make it unsatisfying by noticing how much sleep you lose when you scroll. By flipping the 4 laws, bad habits lose their power and fade away. The 4 laws of behavior change are simple, but simplicity is their strength. You do not need complicated rules or expensive tools to improve your habits. You just need to understand the natural patterns of human behavior and design your environment and routines accordingly. Habits are not about motivation, talent, or luck. They are about structure and consistency. When you follow the laws, you make it easier for yourself to act in the right direction every day. Over time, applying these laws creates momentum. Small habits, repeated daily, lead to noticeable results. 1 week of small, consistent actions builds a foundation. 1 month of these actions shows visible improvement. 1 year of following the 4 laws can completely change your life. The magic is in the combination of the laws, which works even when life is busy or challenging. The structure removes the need to rely on willpower alone, which is often unreliable. These principles can be applied to every area of life. Learning a language, improving fitness, building better relationships, saving money, or growing a business, the same laws work everywhere. By making habits obvious, attractive, easy, and satisfying, you create an environment where success is natural. You no longer have to push yourself to act because the system guides you. You no longer have to wait for motivation because the habit itself provides the push. The 4 laws turn good intentions into consistent actions, and consistent actions into lasting change. Understanding these laws is the first step, but applying them consistently is what makes the difference. It is not enough to know the theory. You have to design your life around it. Place cues in visible places, pair habits with enjoyable activities, simplify your routines, and celebrate small wins. Over time, these small actions become automatic and shape your identity. You become the type of person who acts in ways that support your goals without needing constant effort or willpower. In the end, the 4 laws of behavior change show us that change is not about one big decision or sudden motivation. Change is about designing the right environment, the right routines, and the right feedback. When we do this, habits happen naturally, and our lives improve step by step. Small, consistent improvements, guided by these laws, compound into remarkable results. By understanding and using the 4 laws, you can build habits that last, break habits that harm you, and create a life shaped by positive, intentional actions. Chapter 4. Make it obvious. Habits start with a simple signal, something that reminds your brain to act. James Clear calls this the cue, and it is the first step in what he calls the habit loop. Every habit has 4 parts: the cue, the craving, the response, and the reward. The cue is the trigger that tells your brain it's time to act. The craving is the desire or motivation to perform the habit. The response is the action itself, the habit you do. The reward is the benefit you get, which tells your brain that this habit is worth repeating. Understanding this loop is the key to making habits obvious and easier to follow. The first step to building better habits is to notice them. Many of our habits happen automatically without conscious thought. You might brush your teeth every morning, check your phone after waking up, or grab a coffee at the same time every day without even realizing it. By paying attention to your habits, you can identify the cues that trigger them. When you see the patterns clearly, you can design your environment to make good habits obvious and reduce the cues for bad habits. For example, if you always snack on sweets while watching TV, notice the cue, the television. Once you recognize it, you can change the habit by placing healthier snacks nearby or choosing a different activity. One effective way to make a habit obvious is called habit stacking. Habit stacking is the idea of connecting a new habit to an existing one. Since your existing habit is already automatic, it becomes a reliable cue for the new habit. For example, you might say, "After I brush my teeth, I will floss one tooth," or "After I pour my morning coffee, I will write one sentence in my journal." By stacking the new habit onto something you already do, you make it easier to remember and easier to perform. Habit stacking works because your brain is already primed to act when the first habit occurs, so the second habit becomes a natural extension. Visual cues are another powerful tool to make habits obvious. If you want to drink more water, keep a water bottle on your desk where you can see it. If you want to practice English, leave a book or notebook on your pillow or your desk so it catches your attention. Small changes in your environment can make a huge difference because your brain responds to what it sees. When the cue is visible and clear, you are more likely to act. On the other hand, if the cue is hidden or unclear, the habit often fails. For example, if your running shoes are buried in a closet, you are less likely to go for a run. By placing them where you can see them, you increase the chance of following through. Making habits obvious is also about designing your environment to support your goals. We often rely on willpower to act, but willpower is limited. By arranging your surroundings so that the cues for good habits are visible and the cues for bad habits are hidden, you make the right choices easier. For example, if you want to eat healthier, place fruits and vegetables in a visible location and keep unhealthy snacks out of sight. If you want to read more, keep a book on your nightstand instead of your phone. These small environmental changes create constant reminders that nudge you toward the habits you want to form. It is also helpful to write down your intentions clearly. Instead of vaguely saying, "I will exercise more," specify, "I will walk for 10 minutes after breakfast." The more specific and visible the plan, the more obvious the cue, and the easier it is to act. Writing down your habit intentions makes your brain more aware of the plan and increases your commitment. This simple step turns a general idea into a concrete action, making it more likely to happen consistently. Another technique is to make cues part of your daily routines. Many habits fail because they are disconnected from your regular schedule. By attaching a habit to a consistent time or place, it becomes obvious and natural. For instance, practicing English right after lunch or meditating before brushing your teeth helps the habit become part of your daily rhythm. Your brain begins to associate a specific cue with a specific action, and the habit becomes automatic over time. You can also use visual tracking to make habits obvious and satisfying at the same time. A calendar, checklist, or journal can remind you of your progress and encourage you to continue. For example, marking an X on a calendar for every day you complete your habit creates a visible record that motivates you to keep going. Seeing your progress at a glance makes the habit feel real and reinforces the loop. The visual cue of the calendar or checklist acts as a reminder, a reward, and a motivator all in one. Sometimes making habits obvious requires removing obstacles for good habits and adding obstacles for bad habits. For instance, if you want to spend less time on social media, remove the app icon from your phone home screen. If you want to eat healthier, place unhealthy snacks out of reach. These changes make the cues for positive habits clear and the cues for negative habits hidden. By shaping your environment this way, you make it easier for your brain to notice the right actions and ignore the wrong ones. Finally, remember that clarity is key. A habit cannot be effective if it is vague or uncertain. The more obvious and clear the habit, the more likely it is to stick. Whether it is reading, exercising, studying, or practicing a skill, your brain responds to clarity and visibility. The obvious cue acts as a constant reminder that you are ready to act. Over time, this consistency creates automatic behavior, and habits no longer require conscious thought. By understanding the habit loop, identifying cues, stacking new habits onto existing ones, and using visual signals, you can make good habits obvious and easy to follow. This makes it much simpler to build positive routines and reduce unwanted behaviors. The first step to lasting change is not motivation or willpower. It is noticing the signals that drive your behavior and designing your environment so that the right habits are obvious every day. Chapter 5. Make it attractive. Habits are not just about what we do, they are also about how we feel. Our brains are wired to seek pleasure and avoid pain, and this is where attraction plays a key role in forming habits. Dopamine, a chemical in the brain, is responsible for making us feel motivated and excited. When we anticipate something enjoyable, dopamine is released, and our brain starts craving that experience. This craving pushes us to act and repeat the behavior. Understanding the role of dopamine helps us design habits that are naturally appealing and easier to maintain. Making a habit attractive means finding ways to associate it with something positive. For example, if you want to exercise regularly, you can listen to your favorite music, podcast, or audiobook while working out. The enjoyment of listening to something you love makes the exercise more appealing. Instead of seeing it as a chore, your brain begins to look forward to the activity. When habits are enjoyable, your brain releases dopamine in anticipation, and this motivates you to repeat the behavior consistently. The more attractive the habit, the more likely it is to become automatic over time. One effective technique to make habits attractive is called temptation bundling. This means combining an action you want to do with an action you need to do. For instance, you can allow yourself to watch your favorite TV show only while running on a treadmill, or you can listen to a podcast you love only while doing household chores or studying. By pairing a pleasurable activity with a necessary habit, you make the habit more enticing. Temptation bundling leverages our natural desire for reward and helps transform a task we might otherwise avoid into something we actively enjoy. Changing your environment is another powerful way to make habits attractive. The world around you influences your choices more than you might realize. If you want to eat healthier, place fruits and vegetables in a visible, easy-to-reach location, and hide unhealthy snacks out of sight. If you want to practice English, surround yourself with books, videos, and resources that spark your interest. By making the positive cues visible and inviting, your brain is naturally drawn to them. Habits become attractive when the environment signals that doing the right thing is easy, enjoyable, and rewarding. Attraction also comes from social influence. Humans are social creatures, and we often imitate the behaviors of those we admire or spend time with. Surrounding yourself with people who share the habits you want to build makes those habits more appealing. If your friends are regular exercisers, readers, or learners, you are more likely to adopt similar behaviors because they seem desirable and normal. Social cues create a sense of belonging and make habits feel enjoyable rather than forced. Another way to increase attraction is to focus on the positive aspects of a habit rather than the negative. Instead of thinking, "I have to exercise to avoid being unhealthy," think, "I get to exercise and feel stronger, more energetic, and happier." Framing habits in terms of gain rather than loss makes them more appealing and increases your motivation. Your brain is more likely to repeat behaviors that are associated with positive feelings, so the way you think about a habit can change how attractive it feels. Small rewards can also enhance the attractiveness of a habit. Even tiny celebrations like giving yourself a high five, tracking your progress visually, or enjoying a small treat can release dopamine and make the habit feel satisfying. When your brain anticipates these small rewards, it looks forward to performing the habit. This anticipation is what keeps habits going, even when the activity itself might feel challenging or tedious. The principle of making habits attractive can be applied to learning as well. For example, if you're learning English, choose topics that interest you, like stories, songs, or videos that match your hobbies. Pair your learning with something enjoyable, such as a cup of your favorite tea or a cozy reading spot. Over time, studying English becomes something you look forward to, rather than a task you feel you must force yourself to do. The more attractive the habit, the more likely it is to stick. It is important to remember that attraction works best when combined with other habit principles. Making a habit attractive increases your desire to act, but it must also be obvious, easy, and satisfying to become automatic. These laws work together to form a complete system for building lasting habits. When your habits are appealing, the cues are clear, the action is simple, and the reward is satisfying, your brain naturally moves toward them, and the behavior becomes part of your routine without requiring constant effort. Over time, making habits attractive changes the way you experience daily routines. Tasks that once felt difficult or boring begin to feel enjoyable and rewarding. This makes it much easier to maintain consistency, even when motivation is low or life gets busy. The brain is naturally drawn to things it finds pleasurable, and by designing your habits to be attractive, you align your natural impulses with your goals. Finally, the beauty of making habits attractive is that it turns discipline into desire. Instead of forcing yourself to do things you do not want to do, you can design your life so that the habits you need are also the habits you enjoy. This creates a positive cycle, where attractive habits lead to consistent action, which leads to results, which further reinforce the habits. Over time, your daily routines transform into a series of enjoyable behaviors that support your growth and success, making change feel natural, not forced. By understanding dopamine, using temptation bundling, designing your environment, and focusing on the positive aspects of your habits, you can make even the most challenging behaviors appealing. The more attractive a habit is, the more likely it is to become automatic and long-lasting. Making habits attractive is not about tricking yourself. It is about creating a life where doing the right thing feels natural, enjoyable, and rewarding every day. Chapter 6. Make it easy. Building good habits does not have to be hard. In fact, the easier a habit is to do, the more likely it is to stick. James Clear explains that friction, or anything that makes a habit difficult, is the main reason people fail to follow through. Every extra step, every obstacle, every bit of resistance makes it harder for the brain to act. When a habit feels too difficult, we often postpone it, skip it, or give up entirely. On the other hand, when a habit is easy and simple, it requires less energy, less motivation, and less willpower. This is why making habits easy is one of the most important principles of lasting change. One way to make habits easy is to reduce friction. Friction is anything that makes an action more complicated or inconvenient. For example, if you want to exercise, having to drive to a distant gym, change clothes, and carry equipment creates friction. But if you exercise at home, with your clothes and equipment ready, the habit becomes much easier to do. By removing obstacles, you increase the chance of following through. Simple changes, like leaving your workout clothes out, setting up a yoga mat, or having healthy snacks ready, reduce friction and make it easier to act consistently. Another powerful idea is the 2-minute rule. This rule says that any habit can start in just 2 minutes. You do not need to complete the full habit immediately. The goal is simply to start it. For example, if you want to read more, commit to reading just 1 page. If you want to meditate, start with 2 minutes. If you want to write, begin with 1 sentence. By making the habit so small that it feels easy, you remove resistance and make it possible to begin. Once you start, momentum often carries you further than you expected. The 2-minute rule is about making the start simple, because starting is the hardest part. Reducing steps for good habits is another key strategy. Many people give up because the habit requires too many actions or too much planning. By breaking habits into smaller steps, you make them easier to follow. For example, if your goal is to cook healthy meals, instead of trying to prepare a full dinner every day, start by chopping vegetables in advance or making a simple salad. If your goal is learning English, instead of committing to an hour of study, start with 5 minutes of vocabulary practice. Each small step is easy to do, and completing it gives a sense of accomplishment. Over time, these small steps add up to major results. Automation is also an essential part of making habits easy. When you can automate a behavior, you remove the need to rely on willpower or motivation. Automatic habits require less thought and less energy, which makes them more sustainable. For example, You can automate healthy eating by subscribing to a meal delivery service with nutritious meals. You can automate savings by setting up automatic transfers to your bank account each month. You can automate learning by scheduling a daily reminder or using an app that delivers lessons at the same time every day. Automation creates consistency and makes good habits almost effortless. Another way to make habits easy is to prepare your environment in advance. This might mean placing visual cues where you will see them, keeping tools and materials ready, or organizing your space so the desired action is obvious. For example, if you want to practice English every day, keep a notebook, dictionary, or app on your desk where it is easy to access. If you want to exercise, leave your running shoes by the door. Small environmental adjustments reduce the effort needed to act and make good habits more convenient. It is also important to focus on simplicity over perfection. Many people give up because they try to do too much too soon. They want perfect execution or immediate results. But habits grow through repetition, not perfection. By making the action easy, small, and achievable, you remove the pressure and make it more likely that the habit will continue. Even if you do not perform the habit perfectly every time, the repetition builds momentum, and over time, your skills and consistency improve naturally. The principle of making habits easy works in both life and learning. For example, if your goal is to improve English, you can make it easy by choosing small, enjoyable tasks like learning 5 words each day, reading a short article, or listening to a short video. These small actions are not intimidating, and you can complete them even on busy days. Over time, the consistency builds a strong habit that leads to fluency. The key is to reduce the size of the task to the point where it feels simple and possible every day. Consistency is more important than intensity. A small habit repeated every day is more effective than a large habit done irregularly. The brain responds to repetition, and habits become automatic through repeated action. Making the habit easy ensures that you can repeat it daily without relying on motivation or willpower. Over time, this repetition becomes a natural part of your routine, and you no longer need to think about it. The habit happens automatically. In the end, making habits easy is about removing obstacles, simplifying actions, starting small, and automating what you can. It is about designing your life so that the right behaviors are easy to do and difficult to ignore. When you focus on ease, you create an environment where good habits can thrive, even when life is busy, stressful, or challenging. Small, easy actions repeated consistently over time lead to remarkable results. By reducing friction, applying the 2-minute rule, breaking habits into simple steps, automating routines, and preparing your environment, you can make habits almost effortless. The easier a habit is to start and continue, the more likely it is to stick. Success is not about willpower or motivation alone. It is about making the right choices, simple, convenient, and natural. By making habits easy, you allow consistency to become your superpower, and over time, your life transforms through the small, repeated actions that require minimal effort but deliver maximum results. Chapter 7. Make it satisfying. Habits are easier to maintain when they feel good. James Clear explains that satisfaction is the final piece of the habit puzzle. Our brains are wired to repeat behaviors that feel rewarding and avoid behaviors that feel unpleasant. When a habit delivers immediate satisfaction, even in a small way, it reinforces the behavior and increases the likelihood that we will do it again. Without satisfaction, habits may be formed, but they are far less likely to stick because the brain does not recognize a reason to repeat them. Instant rewards are especially important for habit formation. While the long-term benefits of a habit, like losing weight, learning a language, or saving money, are important, they are often delayed. The human brain struggles to stay motivated for delayed rewards alone. That is why adding a small, immediate reward to a habit makes it more satisfying and more likely to be repeated. For example, after completing a workout, you might enjoy a relaxing shower, listen to a favorite song, or simply take a moment to feel proud of yourself. These small rewards create positive feedback for your brain and make the habit enjoyable. Tracking your habits is another powerful way to make them satisfying. When you can see your progress visually, it creates a sense of achievement and reinforces the behavior. Many people use habit trackers, journals, or calendars to mark each day they successfully complete a habit. Each mark is a small victory that your brain registers as satisfying. Over time, the growing chain of completed days becomes motivating. Seeing tangible proof of your consistency gives you confidence, pride, and motivation to continue. One method that emphasizes satisfaction is called the "don't break the chain" technique. This simple but effective method involves marking an X on a calendar for every day you complete a habit. The goal is to keep the chain going without interruption. Once the chain starts, your brain begins to find satisfaction in maintaining the streak. The longer the chain, the more motivated you become to preserve it. Missing a day feels like breaking a pattern, which encourages you to stick with the habit. This technique works because it turns habit completion into a small, immediate reward and creates a visual reminder of your progress. Satisfaction also comes from celebrating small wins. Many people focus only on big results and forget to acknowledge small achievements. But habits are built from repeated, consistent actions, not single giant accomplishments. By celebrating even minor progress, you reinforce the behavior and train your brain to enjoy the habit. For example, if you are learning English, celebrating completing a short lesson, mastering a new word, or finishing a paragraph of writing keeps the habit positive and motivating. Over time, these small moments of satisfaction build a strong foundation for long-term success. Another way to make habits satisfying is to pair them with enjoyable activities. This is similar to temptation bundling, where you combine a habit with something pleasurable. For example, you might allow yourself to listen to your favorite podcast while exercising or enjoy a cup of tea while studying. The pleasure from the paired activity creates positive reinforcement, making your brain more likely to repeat the habit. By making the process enjoyable, you reduce resistance and increase consistency. Satisfaction also strengthens identity-based habits. When a habit feels rewarding, it reinforces your sense of self. Every time you complete a habit, your brain receives feedback that you are capable, disciplined, and committed. This positive reinforcement shapes your identity, which in turn makes it easier to continue the habit. Over time, you stop asking, "Do I want to do this?" and start thinking, "This is who I am." Habits become part of your identity, and satisfaction plays a key role in cementing that connection. Even small changes in your environment can enhance satisfaction. Visual cues, rewards, or tracking tools can make habits feel more gratifying. For example, a colorful habit tracker, a motivating quote, or a reminder of your long-term goal can create a positive experience every time you act. These small touches increase immediate satisfaction and make it easier to repeat the habit consistently. It is also important to recognize that not all rewards need to be material. The feeling of accomplishment, the pride in completing a task, and the knowledge that you are making progress are powerful forms of satisfaction. When you feel good about your actions, your brain naturally wants to repeat them. Positive emotions, even small ones, are critical for building habits that last. Finally, satisfaction makes habits stick because it completes the habit loop. A habit starts with a cue, followed by a craving, then the response, and finally the reward. If the reward is enjoyable, your brain records the entire process as valuable and worth repeating. Without satisfaction, the loop is incomplete, and habits are much harder to maintain. By intentionally making habits satisfying, you close the loop and strengthen the behavior. Over time, habits that feel satisfying become automatic. The brain begins to expect the reward, and the action becomes easier and more natural. You no longer rely solely on willpower or motivation because the habit itself creates positive feelings. By focusing on satisfaction, you transform small, repeated actions into lasting behavior, turning temporary effort into permanent change. In the end, making habits satisfying is about designing your life so that good behaviors are enjoyable, rewarding, and motivating. By using instant rewards, tracking your progress, celebrating small wins, and creating positive experiences, you increase the likelihood that habits will last. Satisfaction is the force that reinforces action, strengthens identity, and makes consistent progress natural and enjoyable. When your habits feel good, sticking to them becomes easier, and the results grow over time, one satisfying step at a time. Chapter 8. How to Break Bad Habits. Breaking bad habits is often more difficult than building good ones because our brains are wired to repeat behaviors that feel rewarding. However, James Clear shows us that the same principles that help create habits can also be used to break them. By inverting the 4 laws of behavior change, we can make bad habits harder to perform and easier to avoid. These 4 inverted laws are: make it invisible, make it unattractive, make it difficult, and make it unsatisfying. When applied consistently, they provide a practical framework for reducing or eliminating unwanted behaviors. The first step is to make the habit invisible. Habits are often triggered by cues in our environment. If a cue is visible, it reminds our brain to act. To break a habit, we must remove or hide the cues that trigger it. For example, if you tend to snack on junk food while watching TV, remove chips, candy, or soda from your living room. If you scroll social media too much on your phone, delete apps, turn off notifications, or keep your phone out of reach. By hiding the cues, you make it less likely that your brain will remember to perform the habit, and over time, the behavior begins to fade naturally. The second step is to make the habit unattractive. Bad habits often seem enjoyable in the moment, even though they may be harmful in the long run. One way to make a habit unattractive is to reframe the way you think about it. Instead of seeing smoking, overeating, or procrastination as pleasurable, Focus on the negative consequences. Think about the harm to your health, finances, or personal growth. This mental reframing changes the way your brain perceives the habit, reducing its appeal. Another strategy is to associate the habit with discomfort or loss, which discourages repetition. When the behavior feels unappealing, your brain is less motivated to perform it. The third step is to make the habit difficult. The more effort a habit requires, the less likely you are to do it consistently. You can increase friction by adding steps, obstacles, or resistance. For example, if you want to stop watching TV late at night, unplug the television or place it in a hard-to-reach location. If you want to stop checking social media, log out of your accounts, use website blockers, or place your phone in another room. Making the habit inconvenient requires your brain to work harder to perform it, which reduces the frequency of the behavior over time. Difficulty acts as a natural filter that discourages bad habits. The fourth step is to make the habit unsatisfying. Bad habits often persist because they deliver a reward, even if it is temporary. To break a habit, you can remove or delay the reward and associate the behavior with a negative outcome. For example, if you tend to spend too much money impulsively, track your expenses and see how quickly they add up. If you procrastinate, set consequences for missing deadlines or create accountability with a friend or colleague. When a habit no longer provides satisfaction, your brain is less motivated to repeat it. Pairing the habit with an unpleasant feeling strengthens your resolve to avoid it. Practical examples show how these inverted laws work in everyday life. If someone wants to stop drinking soda, they can make it invisible by keeping it out of the house, make it unattractive by focusing on the sugar and health risks, make it difficult by not carrying cash to buy it, and make it unsatisfying by tracking their intake and noticing the negative effects. Similarly, if someone wants to stop procrastinating on work, they can hide distractions, make the habit of delaying unattractive by imagining the consequences, make it difficult by creating barriers to time-wasting activities, and make it unsatisfying by monitoring lost progress or missed deadlines. By combining these strategies, the brain gradually stops performing the habit. Breaking bad habits is not about willpower alone. It is about designing your environment, mindset, and routines to make the unwanted behavior harder to perform and less rewarding. Relying solely on motivation often fails because motivation fluctuates. By using the inverted laws, you reduce reliance on willpower and create a system that naturally discourages the habit. Over time, the behavior loses its power, and new positive habits have space to grow. It is also helpful to replace bad habits with good ones. Habits do not exist in isolation. They are part of a behavioral pattern. When you remove a negative habit, find a positive habit to fill the gap. For example, if you are trying to quit snacking, replace it with drinking water, chewing gum, or eating a piece of fruit. If you are trying to stop scrolling social media, replace it with reading, journaling, or stretching. The brain naturally seeks action when a cue appears, so giving it a constructive alternative makes breaking bad habits easier and more satisfying. Consistency and patience are key. Breaking a bad habit does not happen overnight. It requires repeated effort, reflection, and adjustment. Some habits are deeply ingrained, and your brain may resist change initially. By consistently applying the inverted laws, tracking progress, and reinforcing the desire to stop the behavior, you can gradually reduce the habit's influence and eventually replace it with healthier alternatives. Finally, remember that mistakes are part of the process. You may occasionally give in to a bad habit, and that is normal. The important thing is not to let a single lapse undo your progress. Analyze what triggered the behavior, adjust your strategies, and return to your plan. Over time, the combination of making the habit invisible, unattractive, difficult, and unsatisfying will significantly reduce its occurrence and help you regain control. Breaking bad habits is a process of design rather than force. By changing your environment, mindset, and approach, you make bad behaviors harder to do and less rewarding. With patience, awareness, and consistency, the habits that once held you back can be replaced by actions that support your growth, health, and success. Using the inverted 4 laws of behavior change gives you a practical roadmap to overcome unwanted behaviors and create a life guided by intention and positive action. Chapter 9. Identity-based habits. Habits are not just actions we perform, they are reflections of who we believe we are. James Clear explains that the most powerful way to build lasting habits is to focus on identity rather than outcomes. Instead of asking, "What do I want to achieve?" you ask, "Who do I wish to become?" When your habits align with your identity, change happens naturally because your behavior reflects the person you see yourself as. Identity shapes your habits in a deeper and more permanent way than willpower, goals, or motivation ever could. Many people focus on outcome-based habits, like, "I want to lose 10 pounds," or "I want to read 50 books this year." While goals are useful, they focus on external results rather than internal transformation. Outcome-based habits rely heavily on motivation, which fluctuates and often fails. Identity-based habits shift the focus to the type of person you want to be. Instead of asking, "Can I run a marathon?" you ask, "Am I a runner?" This subtle shift changes your behavior because your actions now reflect your desired identity, not just a number or milestone. The language we use plays a critical role in shaping identity-based habits. Phrases that begin with "I am" are more powerful than "I want" or "I should." Saying, "I am a reader" or "I am a healthy eater" reinforces your self-image and naturally leads to habits consistent with that identity. When your actions align with your identity statements, your brain rewards you with a sense of integrity and self-respect. Each small habit becomes evidence that you are the person you claim to be, creating a feedback loop that strengthens both behavior and identity. Building habits around identity also makes it easier to maintain them over time. Instead of forcing yourself to act in ways that feel unnatural, you act in ways that feel consistent with your self-image. For example, if you want to become fluent in English, thinking, "I am someone who learns English every day," makes practice a natural choice. You do not rely solely on motivation to study. Instead, practicing becomes a reflection of who you are. Your identity becomes the foundation, and habits become the proof. Identity-based habits are built step by step. Transformation does not happen overnight. It happens through small, repeated actions that reinforce your desired self-image. Start with tiny behaviors that are easy to maintain. For instance, if you want to become a healthier person, begin with one small habit, like drinking a glass of water every morning or walking for 5 minutes after lunch. Each completed habit reinforces your identity as someone who cares about health, and over time, more habits naturally follow. Small, consistent actions accumulate into a new self-perception. Another strategy is to focus on evidence-based habits. Ask yourself, what actions would a person with this identity take today? If your goal is to be a writer, then writing a paragraph each day is an action that supports that identity. If your goal is to be organized, putting things in their proper place is an action that reflects that self-image. Each action becomes proof that your identity is real, which strengthens the habit loop and makes the behavior more automatic. Identity shifts also benefit from reflection and reinforcement. Take time to notice the small behaviors that support your identity. Celebrate them, track them, and acknowledge that each action is a step toward becoming the person you want to be. Over time, these reflections reinforce the internal narrative that guides your behavior. Your identity is no longer a distant goal. It becomes an active guide for daily choices. It is also important to be patient and realistic. Identity change is gradual. Trying to adopt too many habits at once can create resistance and frustration. Focus on 1 or 2 identity-based habits at a time and allow them to solidify before adding new ones. By taking small steps consistently, you build momentum and the changes compound, creating meaningful transformation without overwhelming yourself. Identity-based habits are powerful because they are resilient to setbacks. When a habit aligns with your identity, missing a day does not feel like a failure. It is simply a reminder to return to the behaviors that reflect your desired self. For example, a person who identifies as a runner does not see a missed run as proof that they are not a runner. They simply continue running the next day. This perspective reduces guilt and increases long-term consistency, making habits stick even in challenging circumstances. Finally, identity-based habits create a life of alignment. When your actions consistently reflect your values and self-image, your choices feel natural and meaningful. You do not rely on motivation alone or punish yourself for failing. Instead, you act in ways that reinforce your identity and support your long-term goals. Over time, your identity and habits merge, and becoming the person you aspire to be becomes effortless because your daily behaviors reflect who you truly are. In summary, identity-based habits focus on becoming, not just achieving. By shifting your attention from what you want to what kind of person you want to be, you create a strong foundation for lasting change. Using I am statements, starting small, taking evidence-based actions, and reflecting on progress builds habits that align with your identity. Step by step, these habits transform your self-image, reinforce your desired behaviors, and make lasting change natural and sustainable. Identity-based habits turn action into evidence, evidence into self-belief, and self-belief into a life shaped by intentional, positive habits. Chapter 10: Advanced Tactics: How to Go from Good to Great. Reaching excellence is about more than simply building good habits. James Clear explains that once you have established strong habits, the next step is learning how to go from good to great. This requires a deeper understanding of how the brain responds to challenge, the importance of deliberate practice, and how motivation and effort combine to create lasting success. By applying advanced tactics, you can push your performance beyond the ordinary and reach your full potential. One of the key ideas is the Goldilocks rule. This rule states that humans experience peak motivation when working on tasks that are not too easy and not too hard, but just right, challenging enough to keep you engaged. If a task is too easy, you get bored. If it's too difficult, you feel discouraged. The Goldilocks rule encourages you to find that sweet spot where your skills are stretched but not overwhelmed. For example, when learning English, choosing texts that are slightly above your current level keeps you engaged and learning efficiently. This balance between challenge and skill is what drives growth and keeps habits from becoming stagnant. Deliberate practice plays a central role in advancing from good to great. It is not enough to simply repeat a task. Growth comes from focused, purposeful practice with clear goals and feedback. Deliberate practice involves identifying weaknesses, setting specific improvement targets, and continuously pushing yourself to improve. For instance, if your goal is to become a better speaker in English, deliberate practice might include recording yourself, noticing pronunciation errors, and actively working to correct them. This focused effort accelerates learning and skill development far beyond casual repetition. Sustaining motivation over the long term is another essential tactic. Motivation naturally rises and falls, and relying on it alone is risky. The Goldilocks rule helps maintain engagement, but building a system that supports consistency is equally important. Tracking progress, celebrating small wins, and creating visible evidence of improvement all contribute to long-term motivation. For example, keeping a journal of your daily learning, marking completed tasks, or reflecting on improvements reinforces the sense of accomplishment and keeps you moving forward even when enthusiasm wanes. Another important insight is the relationship between talent and hard work. While natural ability may provide an initial advantage, long-term success is determined far more by consistent effort and smart habits. Deliberate practice, repeated effort, and identity-based habits create the foundation for mastery. James Clear emphasizes that the most successful people are rarely those with the most innate talent. They are the ones who practice consistently, refine their skills, and keep pushing through challenges. The difference between good and great is often persistence, focus, and dedication rather than raw ability. Creating systems for improvement is also essential. Good habits establish the baseline, but advanced tactics focus on continuous refinement. This means regularly reviewing performance, identifying areas for growth, and experimenting with new approaches. For example, if you are learning English, you might track which areas of grammar or vocabulary are most challenging and design exercises specifically to address them. This systematic approach ensures that your habits not only maintain your skills, but actively improve them. Another tactic is to embrace the mindset of small, incremental improvements. Even expert performers focus on tiny changes that compound over time. Clear calls. This the idea of marginal gains. Making 1% improvements consistently leads to significant results over the long run. By continually seeking small ways to improve your skills, refine your habits, and optimize your environment, you push yourself from being good to becoming truly exceptional. The accumulation of tiny improvements often surpasses sudden breakthroughs. It is also important to manage plateaus effectively. Progress often slows after initial improvements, which can be discouraging. The Goldilocks rule helps maintain engagement during plateaus, but combining it with deliberate practice ensures that growth continues. Recognize that slow periods are normal and use them as opportunities to refine your techniques, review your systems, and strengthen foundational skills. Persistence through plateaus separates those who achieve greatness from those who give up too soon. Finally, advanced tactics emphasize the synergy between motivation, systems, and identity. Motivation drives initial effort, systems create consistency, and identity ensures that habits reflect who you want to be. By aligning these three elements, you create a powerful structure for achieving extraordinary results. Your habits support skill development, your mindset reinforces progress, and your systems sustain momentum, allowing you to continue improving without relying solely on fleeting motivation. In summary, going from good to great requires a combination of challenge, deliberate practice, long-term motivation, and persistence. The Goldilocks rule ensures engagement. Deliberate practice refines skills, and consistent effort compounds into mastery. By understanding the balance between talent and hard work and continuously seeking small improvements, you can push beyond ordinary results. Advanced tactics are not about shortcuts. They are about designing a life where excellence becomes the natural outcome of focused habits, deliberate effort, and a commitment to growth. By applying these principles, you move past simply maintaining good habits and start optimizing your performance in every area of life. Whether it is learning a language, improving health, mastering a skill, or achieving professional success, the path from good to great is built one intentional habit at a time. Over time, your dedication, focus, and consistent effort transform ordinary routines into extraordinary results. Conclusion Episode. Over the course of this series, we have explored the principles behind building better habits and creating lasting change. We started by understanding the power of small changes and how tiny improvements compound over time. Then we learned why focusing on systems, rather than just goals, creates a framework for consistent success. The 4 laws of behavior change, making habits obvious, attractive, easy, and satisfying, gave us a practical toolkit to design behaviors that stick. We also explored how to break bad habits by inverting these laws, and how identity-based habits help us become the person we want to be. Finally, we delved into advanced tactics, like the Goldilocks rule and deliberate practice, to move from good to great. Each chapter has provided strategies that are actionable, simple, and rooted in real-life experience. The key to making all of these ideas work is combining them into your life in a practical way. It is not about doing everything at once, but about creating systems that support your growth and reflect the person you want to become. Start by choosing one small habit. Make it easy to begin, and design it so that it is satisfying. Align it with your identity, reinforce it consistently, and gradually expand from there. Over time, these small, intentional steps compound into meaningful change. The beauty of habits is that they are flexible. You can adjust them, grow with them, and tailor them to your own goals and lifestyle. The most important lesson is to start small and start now. Change does not require dramatic effort or immediate perfection. Even the tiniest habit, repeated consistently, can transform your life over time. Don't wait for the perfect moment, the ideal motivation, or a flawless plan. Take one step today, no matter how small, and build from there. Every action you take becomes evidence that you are capable of creating the life you want. Momentum grows with each repetition, and soon, what once felt difficult becomes natural. Finally, remember that lasting change comes from patience, persistence, and belief in yourself. Habits are not just routines. They are the building blocks of your future. By focusing on small improvements, designing systems that work, and aligning your actions with your identity, you can create a life that reflects your true potential. You have the power to take control of your habits, your choices, and your future. Every small step matters. Every repeated action counts, and every habit you build is a vote for the person you want to become. Start today, start small, and trust the process. Over time, your life will change, one habit at a time. Your journey toward growth, improvement, and fulfillment begins with the very next action. Keep going, stay consistent, and embrace the power of small, positive change. The life you desire is built in these everyday moments, and every habit you choose is a step closer to becoming the best version of yourself. Thank you for joining me on this journey through Atomic Habits by James Clear. I hope these lessons inspire you to take small, consistent steps toward the life you want. Remember, change starts with tiny habits repeated over time, and every action you take is a vote for the person you want to become. If you found this video helpful, make sure to like, share, and subscribe to Read and Learn English for more motivational content and practical strategies to improve your life and English skills. Don't forget to hit the notification bell so you never miss a new episode. I'd love to hear from you. Comment below which habit you're going to start today, no matter how small. Your journey begins with that first step. Start now and keep building momentum. See you in the next video, and remember, small habits lead to remarkable results.